So today I'm going to report or to discuss about the stages of language acquisition. Language acquisition is perhaps the most important education goal of any English language learner. So in order to ensure English language learners are on track, it is crucial parents and teachers understand the stages of language acquisitions for English language learner and how they differ from stages of first language acquisition. Let's take a deeper look at the stages as well as the techniques for teaching at, at every step of the way. So when we talk about ELL stages of language acquisition, a common point of reference is the stage of first language acquisition that nearly all babies go through. While two processes differ significantly, having an understanding of how children learn a language is key is the key to English language learner success. So number one is pre-talking. So in this stage take place from birth to around 6 months of age. So during this time the child does not speak, but it is beginning to understand short words and phrases that are central to their needs and interests. So dito nga stage bagat ang bata is dili pa talaga nakakayakan ni maupay, mga nakakayakan na yabangan short na guti lang nga mga hinaknan mga lipot ngan bagat dire klaro good ngan dire gud nakakayakan hin maupay. So in this stage, infants learn to pay attention to speech, pays attention to intonation and the rhythm of speech long before they begin to speak. The infants also respond to speech more keenly than other sounds. Speech elicits greater electrical activity in the left side of the 2-month-old infant's brain than do other sounds. And the last experiment with microphone and nipple showed that infants suck more vigorously at action triggers of human voice as opposed to music or other sounds. So next is babbling. This babbling phase occurs from around 6 to 8 months old. In this phase, the infant begins to babble and make noises and syllables that are not yet words. Physically, teeth begin to appear and the muscles in the mouth required for speech begin to develop. So didi nga stage bagat it bata bagan it iya mga hinaknan bagan malaksihiya pero diri maintindihan paulit-ulit iya nga words. In this stage, it begins about 4 months. An infant spontaneously utters various sounds at first, unrelated to the household language. So, in receptive language, infants' ability to understand what is said to them begins around 4 months. An infant's ability to produce words begins around holophrastic stage. So the holophrastic stage is significantly longer, occurring between 9 and 18 months old. During this phase, the infant begins to learn and speak single words. So pa isa-isa lang. For example, daddy, father, mama, dada, door, here, etc. So in the beginning, these words are strongly centered around basic needs and interests, as well as names or identifiers like sabi ko na kanina. So in this stage, baga kaya na niya manggaranhin mga tao, mga bagay, ng mga lugar. For example, like tao, naiya ka na niyan word nga mama, and the vocabulary moved to 30 words. Kaya na rin mga words, mga hinaknan na up to 30 words. Improve pronunciation and start understanding what is being said, like come here, stop it, etc. So next is the 2-word stage. So this stage takes place from 18 to 24 months old. Once children have developed single word speech, they begin to pair groups of words together into mini sentences and phrases like I want or give me. So they have third stage because two distinct words used together and sa mga bata kaya na makahimulin words up to 50 words, generally two nouns or a noun and a verb. For example, kanina, I want, give me, and kaya natin makayakan. Big boat, doggy bark, mama dress. So, ito my example. So, the next is the telegraphing stage. The telegraphing stage takes place around the 2 to 3 years old. Over time, children begin to expand their two-word phrases into short sentences. They also begin to utilize lexical morphemes to make the words they use to fit in the sentence. For example, they understand to use a plural boys instead of boy when referring to a group of boys. So did they have telegraphic stage but they characterized by short, simple sentences made up primarily of content words, and no function words, tense endings on verbs, and plural endings on nouns. Iniya nga stage bagat diri pagod na o complete nga kuan talaga yabangan. Waray pa hiya mga sinising no function words. No function words, for example, mama sit, papa car, eat mango, go park. Ashitiya. The multi-world stage. Past the age of 3, most children fall into the multi-world stage. In this final stage of language acquisition, children now learn to use functional morphemes to change the meaning of the words they use. Examples include the words but, in, the, and that. So, during this stage, children language blooms into fluent grammatical conversation. Baganan mga kabataan nga na edad dito 30 months pa igpaw nakaka-form na hirahin mga complete words may mga and this speech during this stage is characterized by the addition of grammatical function words and the acquisition of vocabulary continues to develop. So now let's proceed to the second language acquisition stages. So in pre-production stage. So in this stage, use simple prompts and questions like point to or show me. It provides visuals and aria to communicate whenever possible. It demonstrates and practice classroom routines and limit the amount of technology students are exposed to early and ask other teachers to do the same to provide consistency until students have an adequate understanding of procedures and policies for using computers and other platforms. Focus and repetition, especially with new vocabulary and concepts. And the last one is to get to know your students, the culture they came from, and the norms associated with their culture. For example, some cultures it is inappropriate to make eye contact with a teacher. So this stage may last from several hours to several months, depending on the individual's learner. During this time, new language learners typically spend time learning vocabulary and practice pronouncing new early production. So in this stage, build on strategies from the pre-production stage and yes or no questions and question asking who, such as who, what, where, and when. Provide sentence starters and frame sentences to encourage more complete thoughts. Use students' errors to be better, understand their learning, and identify skills they have mastered and are struggling with. And it reminds students that making mistakes is part of learning and totally okay. So the DNI stage, but this stage may last about 6 months, during which language learners typically acquire an understanding of about 1,000 words. They may also seem They may also learn to speak some words and begin forming short phrases, even though they may not be grammatically correct. So, in this next stage is speech immersion stage, and in this stage, it's all about ask longer form questions with prompts like why and how. It simplifies language when teaching new concepts to allow students to focus on learning one thing at a time. Next is explicitly teach language and writing structures alongside content and vocabulary. Next is teach text organization, explore the similarities and differences between how your students' cultures organize sentences and thoughts. And the last one is begin to expose students to higher order thinking and model appropriate language. So by this stage, learners typically acquire a vocabulary of about 3,000 words and learn to communicate by putting the words in short phrases, sentences, and questions. Again, they may not be grammatically correct, but this is an important stage during which learners gain greater comprehension and begin reading and writing their second language. So the last stage is fluency. So in this stage, language acquisition may vary across content areas. Continue to push students to achieve fluency, especially in subjects where they don't naturally thrive. So language learners still need an extra support, like explicit instructions for navigating difficult text and organizing thoughts and ideas according to the content area. And continue using visuals and strategies from earlier stages where possible for increased consistency. And the last is provide ELLS with opportunities to teach others and prove full understanding of the content in question. So, in this stage, which may last for a year or more after speech emergence, learners typically have a vocabulary of as many as 6,000 words. This usually acquired ability to communicate in writing and speech using more complex sentences. This crucial stage is also when readers begin actually thinking in their second language, which helps them again for proficiency in speaking it. So that's all for my report, and let's move on to our activities. So using a Venn diagram, state the differences and similarities of first and second language acquisition. So that is our activity. So that's all for today, and I hope you learn from it. And thank you, God bless, and mabuhay. Bye bye.